Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Please raise your hand if you can hear me and see me clearly. There should be a button where you can raise your hand. Okay. Wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Please raise your hand if you can hear me and see me clearly. There should be a button where you can raise your hand. Okay. Okay, we'll just wait for a few more individuals to join and then we'll get started, inshallah, in the next 1-2 minutes. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to put it in the chat box and someone will answer the question for you. Okay, we'll get started, and whoever joins, they can join, inshallah, when they're ready. So this webinar is titled Understanding the Symbols of Tajweed, brought to you by Tajweed Academy. My name is Umar Aswat. Tajweed Academy is basically, it's like a platform that I've set up so that I can teach students or Muslims how to read the Quran correctly with its correct recitation, something that is commonly sort of left out, pushed to the side. So as Muslims, we are interested in all sorts of other activities and tropical matters, but the basics, which for example is learning or understanding Tajweed, the science of Tajweed, is left out and neglected, you could say. So this platform I use to offer free webinars like this, just things on YouTube, Instagram, and I have a course as well titled Rectifying the Common Mistakes, which is a pre-recorded course and it's extremely beneficial. Many students have joined, and basically that course is like the main thing of it, which is the learning of 20 theoretical rules and then an application of the rules as well, and to Surah Al-Fatiha and the last 10 surahs. So it's quite interactive and it's quite beneficial in the sense that you apply what you learn compared to other courses. You just learn the theory. This is, you learn the theory and you apply in the recitation. So you learn all the common mistakes and how to avoid them as well. So what we'll do now in the next 45 minutes or so is we'll learn the three primary harakat. So harakat means symbols. So that's the first thing you can learn. Harakat means symbols, and haraka means one symbol. So harakat is plural of haraka. We learn the symbols of tanween. Tanween means nanation. We'll go through that shortly. The stretching symbols, jazm, sakin, shadda, tashdid. Jazm, sakin, and shadda, tashdid is different terminology, but it all means the same thing. So you can either call the symbol which you'll see jazm or sakin, and the W which you find in the Quran, you can call it shadda or tashdid. And finally, we'll talk a bit about the symbol of mad. So before we get started, I just want to ask you guys a few questions. So how many chapters in the Holy Quran? So waiting for a few more. Okay, a few more seconds. Yes, so the answer is there are 114 chapters in the Holy Quran. Some of you have selected 30 because there are 30 parts. So in the Quran, you have 30 parts or juz or paras or siparas, whatever you call it. But in terms of chapters, which is surahs, maybe I should have put surahs in brackets, there are 114 surahs in the Holy Quran. The second question is, what are the three primary symbols in Tajweed, please? Waiting for a few more. Okay, a few more seconds. Okay, it looks like most of you have got it correct, and the answer is Fatha, Kasra, and Dhamma. Fatha, Kasra, and Dhamma, which we'll learn very shortly. Obviously, we're not just going to learn that is the three primary symbols. We'll learn everything that's associated with them. Idhar, Ikhfa, and Idgham is not the three primary symbols, but there are three important rules in relation to Noon Sakin and Tanween and Mim Sakin. So Idhar, Ikhfa, and Idgham, just very quickly, Idhar means to make apparent, Ikhfa means to hide, and Idgham means to merge together. And if you do further your studies, you'll understand what that means when you learn the actual rules. Now, let's get started. I'm just going to take my video off. You can see the screen properly. So we'll start with the three primary symbols. And as you know, or as you now know, harakat means symbols. Okay, harakat means symbols. And in Arabic, it is harakat. And the three primary symbols are the fatha, which is always found on top of a letter, kasra, which is found underneath a letter, and dhamma, which is found on top of a letter, which looks like that. So I put here fatha, kasra, and dhamma. Now, some of you may know these symbols as zabar, zir, and pesh. So that is the subcontinent, so the sort of Asian terminology. But I prefer to use fatha. It's not incorrect. Zabar, zir, pesh is not incorrect. It doesn't matter what you use. But the reason why I teach with fatha, kasra, dhamma is because that is this terminology is universal. So if you are speaking to an Arab, for example, or someone or anyone that's been taught by an Arab, for example, again, if you start saying zabar, zir, pesh, they wouldn't know what you're talking about. So this is universal. If you tell anyone fatha, kasra, dhamma, they should technically know. And fatha is found on top of a letter, and it makes the sound. Okay, so fatha found on top of a letter makes the sound. Example, ba, fatha, ba. So we do not say with the fatha, the common issues or the common errors are when someone says ba, fatha, ba, they're stretching. So you cannot stretch these symbols. These three primary symbols, all three of them, which you'll learn shortly, none of them can be stretched. You have to read quickly. So the three primary symbols should be read quickly, because we'll come to the stretching symbols very shortly. So you don't say ba, fatha, ba, it's ba, fatha, ba, quickly. Another example, thamara, thamara. I'm not saying thamara, thamara. I'm not stretching. It's tha fatha tha, mim fatha ma, ra fatha ra, thamara. Okay, so what you need to remember is do not stretch, and it makes the sound. The kasra found underneath a letter makes the e sound. E. Example, ba, kasra, b. Again, I'll come back to the same point, which is read quickly. So we do not stretch. We do not say ba, kasra, b, ta, kasra, t, ta kasra thi, and so on. We don't stretch because that's something different. We say it quickly, ba kasra bi, ta kasra ti, ta kasra thi, and so on and so forth. Now, the common issue, particularly again with Asians, and the reason I know more about Asian errors is because I'm Asian myself. So a common error with many, but particularly with Asians, is they say air. So ba kasra ba, air. There is no air in the Arabic language. Okay, there is no air. I think there is in Urdu and some other languages, if I'm not mistaken. But in Arabic, there's no air. It's either a, I, u, a, I, u. So we do not say ba kasra ba. And I used to make this mistake myself many years ago. For example, in Surah Al-Fatiha, we do not say ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. We say ihdinas. Hamza kasra I. Ihdinas. Very common issue. Another example, ulaika yu'minuna bih is ulaika yu'minuna bih. So with the kasra, be very clear, make it active, not passive. Don't say air. There's no air in the Arabic language. It is I. So ba kasra bi, ta kasra ti, jim kasra ji, ain kasra I, not a. Okay, and for the rest of the letters as well. The dhamma is found on top of a letter and makes the u sound. Okay, again, we're not saying u, we're just saying u. And example is ba dhamma bu, ba dhamma bu. A common issue, a common error with the dhamma is that some will tend to say ba, ba. So it's not ba dhamma ba, or that's incorrect. It would be ba dhamma bu, ba dhamma bu. So you have to have rounded lips. Rounded lips, your lips have to come out slightly. Whichever letter has a dhamma on top of it, you have rounded lips and you say ba dhamma bu. So example would be an example would be alhamdu. So we can say alhamdu. So for the letter dal, my lips come out and I say alhamdu. I don't say alhamda, or is incorrect. So just to recap, we have fatha found on top of a letter makes the sound, kasra makes the e sound, and dhamma makes the u sound. None of them are stretching, so we're not saying ba, bi, bu. We're saying ba fatha ba, ba kasra bi, ba dhamma bu. Do we have any questions before we move on? If you have a question, please raise your hand and we can unmute you. Okay, let's move on. So the next symbol is the symbols of tanween. And tanween linguistically, so in Arabic, in Arabic you learn that all these words, they have a linguistic meaning and they have a technical meaning in relation to the science. So tanween linguistically means nanation. Tanween linguistically means nanation. And technically in Tajweed means to add a noon sound. Okay, tanween, nanation, and in Tajweed it means to add a noon sound. So what do we mean by tanween to begin with? So tanween means two of each. So you have, to begin with, you have fathatain, kasratain, and dhammatain. Fathatain, kasratain, and dhammatain. I'll put it here in English. Fathatain, kasratain, and dhammatain. Now you can see, or you can realize that it's related back to the primary symbols we just looked at, because we have fatha, and then we've added ayn at the end. We have kasra, we've added ayn at the end, and we have dhamma, we've added ayn at the end. And what does ayn mean, or what does it denote towards? Ayn in English, ayn, but in Arabic it's adding ya noon at the end of the word, shows duality. Shows duality, meaning two of each. As you can see, there's two fatha, two kasra, and two dhamma. So shows duality if you add the ayn. So it doesn't have to be for Arab. It doesn't have to be for these symbols. For example, so my name is Umar. If we say Umarain in Arabic, then that means two Umar. So it's duality, two of each. So that's just an example, but you can use it for any other word. For example, kitab, kitabain. So kitab means book, and kitabain means two books. Now, what sound is actually made from using these symbols? Any letter with fathatain on it will make the unsound. Okay, so as you can see, the narration is kicking in. Noon makes the unsound. Example, ba fathatain ban. So ba fatha ba fathatain ban. Add the noon sound. Ba fathatain ban. Just an interesting point that I want to make is not a rule or anything, but any letter with fathatain in the Quran will always be written with an alif. So that's just an interesting point. You can try searching one instance where that's not the case, but it is the case. Any letter with fathatain is written with an alif. Okay. An example would be af wa jan. So af wa jan. It'll always be read. It'll always be written with an alif. And as we mentioned, coming back to the actual understanding of the symbol, fathatain, any letter with a fathatain on top of it, which is two fathas, will be read unsound. Example, ba fathatain ban. Kasratain, you'll probably guess any letter with kasratain will be the in sound. Ba kasratain bin, ba kasratain bin. And what you need to remember with kasratain, same as kasra, do not say a, so don't say ba kasratain ban. There's no such thing as a in the Arabic language. So ba kasratain bin, ta kasratain tin, and so on and so forth. So an example would be ثمرات ثمرات. So we're not saying ثمرات, ثمرات makes the in sound. Any letter with a kasratain makes the in sound. And dhammatain, any letter with a dhammatain makes the un sound. Ba dhammatain bun. So it's like, that's the symbol. It's written differently in different transcripts, but it can be like the full thing as well. But generally it's written like that. So we say ba dhammatain bun, not bon. Ba is incorrect. Why? Because my lips didn't come up. Bon, that's incorrect. So think about it, practice. It's ba dhammatain bun. Ba dhammatain bun. Example will be, let me just come to the Quran. Waliyun, waliyun. So I'm not saying waliyun. Your is incorrect. I would say waliyun. Waliyun. Lips come out and makes the sound. And as you can realize now, these are the symbols of tanween. Why? Because we've added a noon sound. So we've added a noon sound without the noon being written. Now, ban, for example, can also be ban. So ba, fatha ba, noon with a jazm. Jazm you'll learn very shortly that you joined to the letter before. Ban. Or it could be bin. Could be written like this as well. Or bun. So I hope that makes sense. Do we have any questions before we move on from symbols of tanween? We have a question. Will it be written with an alif in all Quranic scripts and fonts? That's correct. It will be written with an alif always. Okay, let's move on. The next thing we'll learn is the stretching symbols. So the stretching symbols, again, there's 3. And we have the upright fatha, the standing kasra, and the upside down dhamma. Upright fatha, standing kasra, and upside down dhamma. And any letter with these symbols will be stretched. What do we mean by stretched? Upright fatha will make the a sound. A, ba, da, da, ja. So you're stretching for the duration is 2 alifs. Duration you stretch for 2 alifs. Now I'll explain to you what 2 alifs mean. So yeah, stretch for 2 alifs. Now, what do we mean by stretch for 2 alifs? We mean that the time it takes to open a closed finger or to close an open finger. So if you say that's too quick. If you say time it takes to open a closed finger and close an open finger. That's the way you can think about it. But in Tajweed they wouldn't start saying things like that. So the ruling will be stretched for 2 alifs. So the upright fatha makes the sound. Ba, upright fatha, ba. Example would be amana. I am not saying amana, I'm saying amana. These 2 are fatha. This one is a upright fatha. So we say amana. These 2 are quick. I don't say amana, something like that. Or amana, that's wrong. Amana. The rest you read quickly. This one you stretch. The standing kasra makes the E sound. E, we stretch. E, we don't say E, we say E. Example, ba, standing kasra, B, T, B. In terms of example, again, we come back to the same thing for kasra. Don't say that's incorrect. For an example, oh yeah, li'ilaf. So Surah Quraysh, we say lam kasra li, and then the alif will have the standing kasra li'ilafi Quraysh. We don't say li, we say li'ilaf because of the stunning kasra. And yeah, as I say, don't say la'alafi, that's incorrect. Li'ilaf. So a lot of things when it comes to tajweed, like it all comes down to moving your mouth and just trying to be as precise as possible. And your recitation can go from basic to a very good level simply by doing that, by making an effort, concentrating on what you are reading on each and every letter, and trying to give it its due right and articulation. So just ensure that you, ensure that you make an effort on each and every letter and just try to read it clearly, and that will make a massive difference in your recitation. The next one is upside down dhamma. We say, example, bu, du, bu. Again, we don't say o, bo, that's incorrect. We say u, rounded lips. Anything to do with dhamma, ensure you have rounded lips. For example, a'udhu, o is incorrect. A'udhu, a'udhu. So read clearly, and that will be then the correct recitation of that letter. Do we have any questions before we move on? Let's move on. The next symbol is jazm sakin. So as I mentioned, it's just different terminology. It all means the same thing. And it is this symbol found on top of a letter, a small round circle. And in some transcripts, it would be half a circle. Okay, so depending on which transcript you're reading, it will be either a full circle or a half circle. And the ruling or the understanding behind jazm sakin is any letter with jazm sakin on top of it, so it'll always be on top. What do? Will be joined to the letter before it. Okay, so any letter with a jazm sakin will be joined to the letter before it, and you'll see jazm sakin in probably every, if anything, every word. And easiest example would be al-hamdu. So the lam and the meme have jazm sakin, so we join to the letter before. So it doesn't have a sound, if you can say, of its own. The way fatha has the sound, kasra e, dhamma u, fathatain an, in, un, a, e, u. It's got its own sound. The letter with jazm sakin, for example, al, what sound does it have? Nobody really knows, because you're joining to the letter before. And that's why the jazm sakin is considered to be the weakest symbol. So al-hamdu. Another example, ul, joining to the letter before. So it doesn't have a sound of its own. So that's all you need to know for jazm sakin. It's the weakest symbol. It'll always be found on top of a letter, and if it is found, it'll be joined to the letter before it. Loads of examples. Another example could be min, so we're joined to the letter before, or alam. So yeah, you'll find many examples, and this is how it's written in the transcripts. The next symbol we'll look at is shadda tashdid. So shadda tashdid, you'll most definitely have seen it. Again, it means the same thing, which is the W symbol always found on top of a letter, W symbol. And the ruling or the understanding behind a letter with a tashdid or shadda on top of it is you would read the letter twice. So any letter with tashdid, you would read twice. The easiest example is, the best example is Allah. So think about it. Allahu. We are reading the letter lam twice because it has a jazm tashdid on top of it. I'm not saying Allahu, Allahu. Technically, if you look into it intrinsically, it'd be al. So you're reading twice. So the first one would have jazm, and then the second one will have whether is associated, and then Allahu. So technically saying Allahu. Easy example would be Abba. Abba. I am saying the letter ba twice. I'm not saying Abba. Abba is incorrect. Why? Because then I haven't given the tashdid its due rights, which is the strongest symbol. Tashdid is the strongest symbol. So it takes precedence over any other symbol, particularly jazm. There are instances in the Quran where the two may overlap. So you need to just keep in mind that the jazm is always read, the tashdid is always read twice, and the jazm can be ignored at some points. So abba intrinsically would be abba. Okay, abba, atta, tabbat yada, tabbat. 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 There's a common misconception when it comes to tabbat yada abi lahabin wa tabba. So some people think because you're stopping, you just say watab, watab. That's incorrect. You'll have to read the letter ba twice. They say tabbat yada abi lahabin wa tabba. So if anyone asks you, you're definitely reading the letter ba twice. You don't stop and say watab, watab. That's incorrect. You say tabbat yada abi lahabin wa tabba, wa tabba. And then the next verse is, you won't do watabba the way we've done here because, for example, ma aghna anhu maluhu wa ma kasab. On kasab, I'll put that here. If you look in the Quran, in the Mus'haf, it'll just be kasab, kasab. There'll be no tashdid. Obviously, the rules of waqf mean that this, we're going a bit off topic here, but the rules of waqf is if you're stopping, waqf means stopping, and if you stop on a fatha, it changes into a jazm sakin. So you say kasab, kasab. But if you stop on watab, because it's got tashdid, it isn't changing to anything. It's just watab. You literally read the letter twice. So tashdid is, or shaddah is the strongest symbol. Do we have any questions? If you have any questions, you can raise your hand or you can put it in the chat box. Okay, let's move on. So, yes, it's about 35 past. So, the last bit I just want to mention, and we'll conclude with this, inshallah, is the symbol of mad. There are two symbols you'll find. One is looking a bit like that, and the other is the rounded line. Okay, this symbol will come with mad muttasil. So this information is just information. Obviously, we're not going to learn the actual rules, but it's just for you to now inshallah be motivated and go away and actually learn these rules. So this will come with mad muttasil and mad lazim. These are actual rules that need to be studied and learned, and then obviously applied. We don't learn just to know, we learn to actually apply in our recitation. And this symbol will come with something called mad munfasil. Mad means stretching or elongation, whatever you want to say. Because as you know, like with the beauty of the Arabic language is when you're translating back to English, you can have like so many different translations. So mad can mean stretching, elongation, and any other synonyms. But this symbol is mad muttasil or mad lazim, which is stretching for 5 alifs and 6 alifs, and mad munfasil is stretching for 2 to 4 alifs. Okay, so that's just something there for you guys to inshallah hopefully be motivated to learn and look into and actually apply and practice. And yeah, that's about it for today. I hope that was beneficial, and it's just a short session. Obviously, I'll do something because I've been teaching a similar thing face to face, and the students find it quite beneficial. So I thought I'll share it with more people, inshallah. So yeah, do we have any questions before we end this session? You put in the chat box if you like. Okay, that's fine. If there's no questions, then I hope it was beneficial. It may have been a bit on the basic side for some of you, but I hope that you at least something new. As I say, the key things are when it comes to the symbols, for example, don't say air, it's E. Don't say R, it's U. So now you can hopefully apply that in your recitation. Thank you so yeah, Jazakumullah khairan, Allah accept. And yeah, it's all about applying now. So I mean, it's all about applying, because we can learn as much as we want, but when it comes to Tajweed, it's like the reason you learn Tajweed is so that you know why you are doing what you are doing. So in the sense that, you know, for example, if I'm saying inna Allah, why am I saying inna, for example? Why am I not saying inna Allah? So there's all rules behind this. So we are doing it for a reason. The reason we learn the theory is so we know why we are doing what we are doing. But then when we do learn the theory, we put it into practice. So now it's all about going away and practicing. You won't become no one will ever be perfect. Obviously, we try to get to that stage where we'll always be learning something new, but it takes a long time. So you have to keep practicing, and the more you practice, the better you get. And these are just the symbols, but there are many rules that can be learnt as well. I hope you found beneficial. Jazakumullah khairan for your comments, and subhanallah wa bihamdihi, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. And yeah, if this has been streamed on YouTube, so if you know anyone that may find this of benefit, then they can search for Tajweed Academy on YouTube. Jazakumullah khairan. Have a good rest of day, and feel good knowing that you spent some time studying the Quran. The Prophet ﷺ said, the path of knowledge is the path to Jannah, and the best amongst you is the one who learns the Quran and teaches it. Jazakumullah khairan.